Every time there's a discussion about global conflicts, you'll hear one country being mentioned more than any other: Iran. The country used to be a great and powerful empire, and although that's all gone now, Iran still attempts to exert its influence in regional politics. A recent example of this is when they launched missiles and drones over the weekend targeting Israel in response to an Israeli attack on their consulate in Damascus that resulted in 13 fatalities. But the bigger question is, how does Iran's history impact its global relations today? Back in the days, Iran used to be a completely different country. It even had an alliance with the US. But everything changed in 1979 when one man became the voice of millions, someone who the country's population was desperately looking for. Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini came to be known as the father of the Iranian Revolution. After he became Iran's supreme leader with religion as its foundation, he quickly made his political aspirations public. During the revolution, Iran broke its alliance with Western powers, leading to increased tension with the US. The situation was worsened when supporters of the new regime stormed the American embassy in Tehran, leading to a 444-day standoff and international sanctions. Since then, Iran has been trying to protect itself from what it sees as a constant attempt by the US to overthrow the Islamic Republic. Over the years, there have been many instances of violence between the United States and Iran, but things escalated in 2020 when the US killed an important Iranian general named Qasem Soleimani. And during the 2023 Israel-Gaza war, in just 4 months, Iran-backed militias attacked US bases in the Middle East 170 times, which was 20 times more than the previous 4 months. But after 3 American soldiers died, the US threatened to hit back, which led to a significant decrease in attacks. Iran wants to be seen as the most anti-US government in the region, but there's not much a country can do alone, so it's actively seeking international allies. They always support the side opposed to the US and consider Russia their ally. As a result, US has long blamed Iran for providing Russia with weapons to help in the war with Ukraine, which is seen as Iran's strategy to boost its global power by strengthening its relationship with Russia. Iran's goal is to expel the US from the area and take their place, but they're up against 2 major rivals in the region vying for control. But Iran has set up several partners and proxies to prevent any attacks on their home turf. They call this network the Axis of Resistance. They've made this happen by allying with groups like Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and other strong groups in Iran, Syria, and Bahrain. Some in the Western world call these groups terrorists, but at the same time it's easy for Iran to deny having any involvement with them, as these groups don't take orders from Iran and are free to make decisions on their own. Now here's the thing, that's what Iran wanted. They never really wanted to control these groups, but instead used them in the ongoing Cold War against its regional rivals in the Middle East. For decades, the Middle East has been troubled by a series of conflicts, with Saudi Arabia and Iran frequently at its center. While the two never officially went to war with each other, they engaged in proxy warfare, providing support to opposing factions in other countries. Such interference makes it impossible for these countries, especially those with limited resources, to operate effectively and without external pressures. But both of these countries see tremendous opportunities in these conflicts. Basically, Saudi Arabia is the top Sunni group in the Middle East, while Iran is the biggest Shia group. Now, even though the countries have never fought each other directly, they've been engaging in proxy wars through other militant groups for a long time. Iran feels like they should be the leader for all Muslims in the Middle East, but especially Shia Muslims, and they've been trying to challenge Saudi Arabia's power for years and to push Saudi Arabia down a peg. Iran has been supporting other groups, for example the Houthis. Ever since Yemen's civil war erupted in 2015, the Houthis, a rebel group trying to overthrow the government, have been battling Saudi Arabia. By now, they control almost half of the country. Recently, tensions in the region have risen, with the Houthis now targeting the Red Sea, a crucial waterway for global trade. While the Houthis listen to Iran, they don't always follow every order from the Islamic Republic. It's kind of like how Hezbollah operates. On the other hand, Iran also says that they only support the Houthis politically and not militarily. The Saudis like things as they are and don't want any uprising that could inspire their own people. They want the power order to remain as it is. On the other hand, the Iranians are all about changing things up. They've been attempting to take down the existing order for years. As a result, both countries support different groups in the Middle East. Just as in Iraq, Saudi Arabia began to support Sunni groups and administrations, while Iran assisted Shia forces in rising up against them. In Tunisia, the Saudis supported a dictator while the Iranians incited protesters. On the other hand, Iran sponsors Shia leaders who sought to overthrow the Bahraini government. Saudi Arabia, in turn, dispatched forces to help quell the protests. Both became active in Libya, Lebanon, and Morocco, but as Saudi Arabia and Iran increased pressure on these countries, they began to crumble. But by now, the dispute has escalated, with both countries deploying their own forces on the ground. The Saudi military is deployed in Yemen to assist the central government, and they are fighting the rebels known as the Houthis, an Iranian proxy force. And the opposite is happening in Syria. The Iranian military is fighting alongside militias, including extreme groups such as Hezbollah, in support of tyrant Bashar al-Assad. They are fighting insurgent Sunni organizations, which are Saudi proxies. As civil wars erupt in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia and Iran become increasingly involved. Iran picked a side and supported Assad's government because they opposed Saudi Arabia's support for the rebel groups. It wasn't about religion, but rather a practical decision. Iran's political allegiances are driven by strategic objectives rather than religious ideologies. This is also why Iran also supports Hamas, a Sunni group, which brings us to its second rival in the region, Israel. Iran sees Israel as their biggest rival after the US, but even they were taken by surprise on October 7th. On October 7, 2023, a bunch of Hamas soldiers attacked Israel, killing about 1,200 people. This led to the deadliest war ever between Palestine and Israel. Even though Iran said they weren't involved in it, they still supported Hamas. Since then, Iran has been showing support for Hamas to boost their morale during a tough time. For months, Iran and other groups have stayed away from the war, but after Israel's attack on the Irani consulate in Damascus, both Iran and Hezbollah have launched bombs and drones towards Israel. Hezbollah is the most capable and the most skilled group in Iran's allies. They're the prized possession of Iran's axis of resistance and operate in southern Lebanon, posing a threat to Israel's northern border. Word on the street is Israel's plan is to take out Hamas before coming for Hezbollah. But if Iran has anything to say about it, they're gonna make sure that conflict is so nasty that Israel won't even think about attacking Iran directly. Iran's recent attack on Israel marked the first ever direct attack from Iranian soil. The airstrike has received criticism from Israel's allies and fears of increased tensions in the Middle East. Analysts are now saying that Iran's attack was intentional but not meant to cause a bigger problem. They were careful with the amount of damage caused to make a point without starting a bigger conflict. Experts believe that the US may have communicated with Iran prior to the attack, meaning some of it could have been planned beforehand. Now the Americans are giving props to Israel, but I bet that Biden's crew wasn't thrilled about the Iranian consulate raid in Damascus. They knew Iran had to act somehow. On the other hand, Israel's war cabinet is allowed to take action against Iran. However, Iran has warned Israel to watch out for their reaction. Major General Mohammad Bagheri, the head of the Iranian armed forces, said on state TV that if Israel strikes back, their response will be even bigger than the recent attack they did. Iran also cautioned the US against supporting Israel's retaliation, threatening to target US bases. However, a senior administration official stated that President Biden has made it clear that the US will not engage in offensive operations against Iran, but still supports Israel. Ultimately, Iran doesn't want any fighting to happen in their own backyard. Iran hasn't fought a war on their own turf since 1988, when they fought Iraq. It was a pretty terrible experience for Iran, because even though they're much bigger than Iraq, almost twice as big, they couldn't beat them. Lots of innocent people lost their lives, and there are still reminders of that disaster all over the region, and for Iran, it took them a really long time to recover. Since then, Iran has been focused on its missile program as a way to prevent another direct conflict. They're using this program as a defense mechanism against possible attacks and projecting power without engaging directly with any state. However, it seems that Iran's approach to avoiding conflict is changing. So in January 2024, Iran attacked supposed enemy sites in Iraq, Syria, and Pakistan wasn't having it, so they retaliated. While Iran thought they were just protecting themselves, everyone else in the region saw it as being aggressive. Due to the ongoing conflict in Gaza, there is concern regarding the loss of Iran's regional deterrent capabilities. To address this shortfall, Iran might seek to strengthen its position through nuclear deterrence, the ultimate safeguard. However, the US really doesn't want Iran to have nuclear power. The Western countries have tried talking things out with Iran to stop them from making nuclear weapons, but President Trump pulled out of a really important agreement in 2018. According to him, that agreement was terrible and unfair. In 2023, US intelligence expected Iran might be just weeks away from having a nuclear weapon, and by now, they might be even closer to becoming a nuclear power country. This could have devastating effects if Israel goes to war with Iran at such a time. But what do you think? Will things settle down in the Middle East, or will they continue to escalate? Let us know in the comments below.